Hi, I'm Jackie Wicks with Peer Trainer, and we're talking about something that keeps coming up over and over in the weight loss discussion. It's hormonal imbalance. And I have to say that there's so much confusing information out there. Even when I start to do my own research, I sit there and say, well, what's really going on? And how do I know if my hormones are out of balance? What actually even supports it? Is any of it even real? Because I sit there and think, well, if I eat a nutrient-dense diet and I work out and I take care of my stress levels, isn't that enough? But there's too much information out there that keeps telling me that it's not enough, that the hormone balance is so important. And so, I have to say that one thing we always know at Peer Trainer, confusion leads to inaction. But if someone is there, or even a group of people, to explain it clearly, you have a better sense of what it is, and you can really make an informed decision. So I wanted to tap for this interview, Dr. Sisskind. Just a tiny bit of a bio on him. He completed his undergrad at Stanford, and he went to do his graduate studies at UCLA and received his MD from Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, which is a very prestigious school. But the thing about it is he's a really passionate researcher of integrative medicine, really marrying the East and the West methods for achieving optimal health. And he particularly focuses on natural weight loss and weight management, and he has really dug into this hormone equation and how it has an effect on weight loss. So I wanted to bring him in to talk about some of the stuff that he's doing and welcome, Dr. Sisskind.
Well, thanks, Jackie. It's great to be speaking with you.
I wanted to tell the audience, I recently met you here in Boulder. It was great to hear so many of the things that you were talking about in the subject. And I just want to dive right in. One thing we all understand is we know a lot of the right things to do. You eat vegetables, you manage your stress levels, you get your oxygen going with your working out. But the best of us, me, everyone, really continues to struggle with the stress levels, even though we're trying to focus on it. And I see this conversation in a lot of places. And obviously because you're a physician, you're also a husband, you have 4 kids, so obviously you're no stranger to stress. I'd love to know, what you're seeing here in the aggregate.
Well, Jackie, it's good you asked. You're right. I'm no stranger to stress. I have 4 young kids, including a 3-month newborn. So we've got plenty of sleeplessness and stress going in our house. But the main thing that I'm seeing and that I want to stress is that there's nothing wrong with you per se. It's not that you lack willpower, that you're weak. A lot of people think, I just don't have the willpower, I can't do this. We all have all the willpower that we need, all the strength that we need inside of us to succeed at pretty much whatever we set ourselves out to do. But what can go wrong is that our hormones can get out of whack due to many factors: poor nutrition, lack of exercise, stress, environmental factors. And it's these imbalances that can stand literally like a brick wall between you and your goals, your weight loss goals especially. So until you can get your head around these reasons and know how to combat them, you'll essentially be stuck. But what I'm here to tell you is that there's a way to smash through this wall that I'm talking about, to take control of your health, your life, and lose the weight that you're trying to lose.
It's interesting that you're saying that because I've been hearing this, just little bits and pieces from different places. But it is, again, confusing, even for me who's digging into this, and I do this for a living. But, I'd almost like you to break it down. For example, you talk a lot about something called adiponectin. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I hope so.
You got it.
I'd love you to just explain it in simple terms. What is it? Why is it so important? Because when we talk about hormones, people actually think there's, a specific product. And, I'd love you to just explain in easy-to-understand terms what it is, how it works.
Sure. Well, one of the hormonal barriers has to do with adiponectin, which is what you just mentioned. It's a tough word to pronounce, and it's actually a hormone that's been in our bodies for centuries, for forever since we've existed. But it's only recently becoming studied in the mainstream literature. And what it is, it's a hormone that is secreted by our fat cells, and it helps convert fat into energy. So in people who are overweight and obese, adiponectin levels are low, and fat tends to build up inside you instead of being used for energy. And adiponectin is literally like the hormone that tells your body to burn fat for fuel. We call it like a fat-burning torch. There are multiple studies that have shown that the more of the hormone you have in your bloodstream, the more fat you burn. And research also shows that low levels of adiponectin are associated with a higher incidence of obesity. But what's frustrating here is that the more fat you have, the lower your levels. So, which is why losing fat is difficult, especially at the beginning. So it's sort of like this vicious cycle that you're on. The more fat, the lower your adiponectin levels. But if you get your adiponectin levels higher, you could burn more fat.
Okay, so how do we boost the levels? How do I do this, for example? How do I even know that, me, maybe, or anyone, how do you even know if your levels are low?
Well, there are actually some very expensive blood tests that you can actually test adiponectin levels in your blood, but they're very expensive tests. They're mostly science in the scientific realm at this point. But what is shown is that you can actually, if you can increase your adiponectin levels to a normal range, you can magnify your body's ability to use fat for energy. It's sort of like reigniting your fat-burning furnace, and that makes it harder for fat to accumulate. So the question is, how do you do this? And I've always sort of inclined towards, what are some natural ways? How can you address some of these hormonal barriers naturally without drugs, without toxic drugs and things? And it turns out that for adiponectin, you can actually increase your levels by increasing your magnesium intake. Magnesium is a common mineral. It's available readily. You can take it as a supplement, which are inexpensive, or you can do it with food by, for instance, you can consume seeds, like pumpkin seeds are great. Green leafy vegetables like spinach and kale also can help increase your adiponectin levels.
Well, that makes complete sense. And then I guess the next natural question is, can someone just eat, obviously high nutrient density greens and kale, and they're, set? I guess I want to ask another question. I guess what you're saying, and so many other people that I've worked with insist on supplementation as part of the mix with the greens.
Well, it's a very good question, and being someone involved in a supplement company, you'll probably think that what I'm about to say doesn't make sense, but I actually think that you really don't need to have supplements as long as you're eating the right foods that are nutrient rich, as you say. You really, if you can do everything exactly right and eat the right foods and control your stress levels and all of these things, then I think you're well on your way. The problem is that most of us don't have that opportunity to eat that way, either because of where we're surrounded, where we live, or what we're exposed to, or our daily activities. So, that's it's a funny question, but I think that you can get there with food and without the supplements if you're eating your greens and doing the right things.
And I think it's also important to say that when people say, well, I eat my greens, I mean, how many greens are you really eating? And I think it's easy to almost fool yourself when you're sitting with your plate of food and there's, maybe 3 broccoli stalks there, and you say, well, I'm eating my greens. I mean,
right.
From what I see and from what people say, that's really not what we're talking about. We're sort of talking about, is your plate 80% greens or 90% greens? And then, of course, there's always the question, well, where was it grown? Have you been able to analyze the soil? Do you really know what the nutrients are of the food that you're eating?
Right. There's a bunch of issues there. We have the 80-20 rule in our house. It's people think you should be having 80% of your food should be from the greens as opposed to the opposite, which is mostly how Americans eat. And also,
right.
You're right. Where are these greens coming from? How are they being grown? What's the nutrient mix? What the soil mix? All these things. We just don't.
Well, and also, and I think it's good to acknowledge, really where are you on that scale? What does your plate really look like? Because I know that I even used to fool myself thinking, well, I'm eating so many greens. And before I really looked at my plate and said, there is just not enough here. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying is if you're really 100% sure, then, yeah, sure, maybe that is the best way to go. But it just seems that for most people that the supplementation is a necessary part of the mix.
Right.
Now, Go ahead.
To swing it back around. So I mean, that's exactly how I feel, and that's why I'm involved with supplements and think they're so important, because literally everyone that I know needs that boost to help them get where they need to go.
And and building on that, we talk about hormones, and how that also plays into it. What's the most important ones, why. For example, I've heard, obviously, Dr. Oz speak about ghrelin, and not just Dr. Oz, so many different people talk about ghrelin.
Sure. So that's another one of the hormonal barriers that I talk about a lot, because, and I'm glad you brought it up, it's a really important hormone that some of you may have not have heard of, and it's ghrelin.
Ghrelin. See, I'm not even pronouncing it correctly.
Right. It's called ghrelin.
Gremlin.
It's like a gremlin, but it is like a gremlin, but it's the hunger hormone, and basically the more ghrelin that you have in your system, the hungrier you are, and it's produced mainly in the stomach, and it acts on the brain to stimulate hunger. So basically, if you find yourself fighting cravings and you can't seem to stay away from the refrigerator after dinner, it could be due to elevated ghrelin levels.
A lot of little gremlins running around.
Yeah.
For me, that's a great little visual so that I understand what's going on. I mean, so can you lower it or actually eliminate it? How? I mean, do I know I have a problem just because I'm getting hungrier or cravings, or how do you figure that out?
Well, first of all, the idea is to get them to normal levels. You'll never eliminate these hormones. These are all crucial hormones that your body needs to function. They need to be at normal levels. So the idea, what's interesting about ghrelin, and here's sort of another natural cure, is new research is showing that even low levels of sleep deprivation can increase your ghrelin levels, and that leads to more fat being stored in your body. You're feeling hungry all the time. Now, I don't know how much you know about sleep, but most people need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, not 5, not 6. People say, I got 6, I'm getting enough. You really need 7 to 8, and it's super important that you try and find a way to get those hours in somehow, some way. Now, for me, it's especially difficult with a newborn baby, and so I'm always trying to figure out how to do it, but it's crucial for everyone. And you have to remember that jacking yourself up in the morning with caffeine or energy drinks is exactly the wrong thing to do if you want to lose weight. It's simply not a good substitute for getting sleep.
And it's hard to do because, just like you mentioned, you have a newborn, and you have to get through your day, and you have so many things going on, and you almost feel like, well, what else am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to get through my day? I only had 3 hours of sleep, and this might go on for a longer period of time than I'd like. Right.
It's one of the biggest problems in our society, that doesn't get a lot of attention. But the lack of sleep is really a deep problem.
Well, I mean, I heard someone just said something like 50 million, or I don't know exactly what those numbers were, but to be going through your day like a zombie, it's no surprise why there are so many energy drinks and the caffeine and all of that stuff to be able to help you get through the day. I completely understand it, and I think that's what's interesting that you're saying is that this is obviously relating to hormone levels as well, and it's not just a matter of you not getting enough sleep. You are almost setting yourself on this track of really going down the wrong path.
Right, and it's a track that once you're on, it's very difficult to get off.
I also heard that, because everyone talks about fish oil, omega-3s, they play a big role in the stress levels. And, it's funny, I was just talking to someone yesterday about that. Is that, also a part of, what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's fish oil, omega-3, it plays a big role in stress, but surprisingly also in weight loss. The two really go hand in hand. And it's a really big deal for us, and it's why we've included a free bottle of our own fish oil product for the webinar participants today.
Really? Because people like freebies, obviously.
Yeah, sure. And, this is a tough market to crack, and, we found that when people take our fish oil, they stay customers. Like you say, there's a lot of confusion about fish oil, the quality, should we take it, how much should we take, and, when people start to experience the support that a high-quality fish oil provides, we all win.
What other hormones are important to know about? What are the other, what we like to call needle movers, where I can get a win? If I'm making Peer Trainer members go through the science class, especially while we're sitting here sometimes going, oh, I'm thinking about all the things I have to do, I really want to make sure that this is clear and that their time is well spent and they're really learning, okay, if you do this, this is what can happen.
Well, thank you, Jackie, for being so direct. I can tell. I know that you're a New Yorker from your background, and I also have, my wife is a purebred New Yorker. I live in New York, and so I know where you're coming from. It's great. To go straight to the question. And this is one of the needle movers that we'll talk about is leptin, and it's a hugely important hormone, and to get some understanding around. And there's something called leptin resistance, and that also is involved with weight gain. And what's huge is that fish oil can play a big role in helping support proper leptin levels. And the common link between leptin resistance, which I just mentioned, and fish oil is inflammation, which I know you talk a lot about.
Yeah, we have written a ton about inflammation, the writers and people obviously with Peer Trainer. And from what we understand, inflammation is absolutely a factor in so much different diseases.
Yes, Jackie, that's exactly right. And, it's a rarely discussed but important cause, not only for many diseases, but also for weight gain. Health is a motivator, but the reality is that weight is the number one motivator.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found is that over time and due to many factors, the same process that helps protect your body can also lead to a state of prolonged inflammation. So we're talking about major maladies like atherosclerosis, heart disease, certain forms of arthritis, and like I've mentioned, weight gain. So the omega-3 fats that are found in fish oil reduce inflammation inside the body and provide multiple benefits like weight loss. So what I found interesting is there are now over 5 published studies that we've dug up that show fish oil alone at the dose that we offer in our own omega-3 TG product can provide significant weight loss results.
All right, so how much fish oil should we all be taking? And I want to know what's great about your version, because obviously I am very busy and I'm listening to you talk about fish oil and I say, okay, well, next time I'm at Whole Foods, or obviously I have different places that I would go. But, I can imagine that that's what people are thinking. Okay, put it on my list. That's what I'm going to get. But I'd love to know what is different about what you're talking about.
Sure. Well, there's two key things. One is built into the name of our company, which is Real Dose, which is what's the real dose. And we looked very closely at the research, and we determined that people should be taking at least 2 grams of omega-3s a day. Now, you have to be careful when you look at the labels, because 2 grams of fish oil is not the same as 2 grams of omega-3s. In fact, most fish oil products contain only 25 to 30% of their oil as omega-3. So, for instance, if you see an omega-3 fish oil bottle at any major drugstore and it says 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, there may only be 250 or 300 milligrams of omega-3 in that 1,000 milligrams. So, to get 2 grams of fish oil or more, you need to be taking 8 to 10 of those capsules. So, that's the first thing. So in our product, Real Dose Omega-3 TG, we made sure that you were going to get the full dosage in a relatively small number of capsules. So therefore, it's much more highly concentrated. Mm-hmm. And the second thing that made our product unique is we're delivering the product in what's called the triglyceride form, and that is a natural form that occurs when it comes from the fish. And what that means is it is more absorbable. It actually gets into your body more easily. You can take it without having to rely on taking it with meals, and it also stays fresher longer. So these are aspects of the fish oil itself that make it more valuable. And these are things that really very few people are doing.
One thing that's very interesting and leads me to just ask you, one thing I hear from people are, well, of course I know I want to take fish oil, but I've taken it and I get these really disgusting burps afterwards.
Right. So the TG form, which is by nature a natural form, it's much, like I said, it's more absorbable and it stays fresher longer. So we have almost no no incidence of that with this product.
Yeah, that's huge, because that is enough for people to say, I know that this is good for me, but that's just an uncomfortable feeling and a result that I don't want.
I take this product personally every day, and I've never had any aftertaste at all.
Okay, that's and you can take it without food, which is great, because what we're always talking about at Peer Trainer is that compliance is so hard, right? You know that you should be doing things, and especially when it comes to people who take multivitamins and supplements. But just to remember, well, I have to take it at breakfast, or I have to take it at lunch. And what we're talking about sometimes is just getting one of those little Dixie cups, and you put your supplements in there, and then you just take them whenever you remember, whenever it's around. And obviously, if you can do that, you don't have to take yours for the bioavailability, to be absorbed in your body with food. It makes it so much easier.
Yes, much easier. You can take it all at once. You can take it spread out during the day with meals or without meals, so it makes it, you're right, it's much more convenient.
That's great. Well, I want to move on to something else that I'm hearing about all the time, because it's how the hormones affect our insulin levels. And, of course, you also hear insulin regulation, biggest factor in weight loss for people. Even if they don't understand insulin, they've always heard, diabetes is a problem when your insulin isn't regulated correctly. Please explain more about that and how that has an effect if you're insulin resistant and your weight loss trajectory.
Sure. Well, insulin is the one that probably most of us have heard of, as opposed to adiponectin and ghrelin, which are relatively
that's true.
So you're right, and there's an association with diabetes, but there's also a heavy association. The cycle of insulin resistance also is involved with weight gain. So basically, this is how it works. If you're overweight, there's a good chance that you're experiencing some level of insulin imbalance, which results in excess glucose, which is sugar, in your system. Now, different people experience different degrees of this, and while it doesn't mean that you're necessarily diabetic, it does mean that your body's insulin or glucose regulator, sugar regulator, becomes less effective at lowering your sugars. Now, the end result of this is that instead of using the excess sugar to feed your muscles or burn it for energy, these sugars are getting stored in your body as fat, and that's how you're getting fat from the sugars. It's simple. If you have insulin resistance, and many of us have it to some degree if we're overweight or obese, it makes it much more difficult to lose fat.
So besides increasing the amount of vegetables, nutrient density, greens in your diet, what are some of the other ways to naturally tackle the problem? And the reason I'm bringing this up is one thing we talked about in Boulder was that people don't really realize that there are some good alternatives to maybe some of the drugs they're taking, and especially when people start to load up on different drugs, we don't necessarily, and those, that mixing of different things, and they don't necessarily know what the cumulative effect of that might be.
Jackie, yes, this is something that I'm personally very passionate about as an MD. There are great drugs out there on the market, and we need to be smart about them. But as far as I'm concerned, if there are simple and proven things that we can do to help people without drugs, then we'd be crazy not to at least give it a try. So for example, there's a recent study that found that consuming just 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, of all things, before a high-carb meal significantly reduces blood glucose levels for those people with insulin resistance. Now, this doesn't mean you should go out and eat a bunch of fast carbs and crash your system and then take your apple cider vinegar. But what it did show was that it could work as well as prescription drugs at regulating your blood sugar. And I think this is fascinating because when you can take a natural food and potentially get a similar result as using a prescription drug, and without the nasty side effects and the high expense, it's worth a try. For me, it's funny. In my family, I have 4 young children, as I mentioned. We've got them started on apple cider vinegar young. They each are asking for it now. We give them veggies to start off their meal, and they have a little bowl of apple cider vinegar that they dip it in. So we're very excited about that.
That's interesting because my grandmother has always made her dressings with apple cider vinegar, and so of course I do. And I didn't even know that it had a different, obviously had a dual health effect. I actually just liked the taste of it in my dressings. That's really interesting. I mean, it almost seems as a general idea of what you're talking about here is becoming more mainstream because a lot of the people that have been introduced to us at Peer Trainer echo and underscore some of the sentiment that you're saying.
Yeah, I think with the beauty of sort of like the way our world is evolving and the availability of information on the Internet, some of these concepts of natural healing are becoming more mainstream, which is really exciting. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people that demonize all drugs in a blanket way, and that's also not smart. You got to play the middle. That's why the word integrative, which is like integrative medicine that people use, I think is a nice way of sort of balancing the true medical miracles that have come in the last 100, 200 years from the great science of Western medicine, but also realizing that there are these other ways of approaching your health that can really help you.
Absolutely. I want to mention another hormone that I'm hearing a lot about right now is cortisol overload. I hear that it's important and that a lot of times when people are going to their physician's offices and saying, hey, I've heard about cortisol, will you measure it? It's not necessarily, it's more something that people are asking about versus it being a standard sort of question or in the diagnosis. I'd love to know what your view is on cortisol in general.
Well, cortisol is one of the other major hormonal barriers or issues that I think are crucial for general health and for weight loss. And basically what cortisol is, it's a hormone that your body produces in response to stress. And this can be a good thing when you're in a dangerous situation, like let's say you're running across a bear while hiking. You need to have that adrenaline response to run away and seek shelter. But the problem is that the constant stress that we're all under in today's world, 24/7, it's hectic. We're running around. Everybody's busy. It elevates our cortisol levels way beyond what we were originally designed to handle.
So I'm jumping. So if we reduce our levels, the pounds just fall off?
Well, you're trying to be funny, right? Yeah, right. Sort of. I mean, the answer is sort of. No matter what, you've got to be very aware of this. And let me go into it a little bit more how this works. From an eating perspective, excess cortisol increases your cravings for sweets and carbs, which can lead to overeating and constant hunger. Cortisol also, it causes your body to actually break down your muscle tissue for energy, which is the absolute worst thing for weight loss. So the less muscle you have will lower your metabolism, and you'll basically gain more fat. In addition, elevated cortisol levels cause percentage of fat to be stored in the abdominal area, which we all know as belly fat. So what's worse about that is the more belly fat you have, the more cortisol you produce, which then causes more belly fat to be stored. So this is one of these vicious hormonal cycles that I've been talking about. And finally, recent studies show that high cortisol levels can be linked to depression in adults and children. And many of us know that when you're depressed, you eat more.
And that's very interesting because from some of the things I've been introduced to, I have seen that excess cortisol could cause people to store more fat, but I didn't realize that it could actually break down muscle tissue.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, what about coffee? I have to ask because if I did an analysis on Peer Trainer of people's logs and what is the thing that is most entered in the daily habit, it would be coffee. And if you ask people, say, well, I'd love to get rid of my coffee, but I feel like I just couldn't even get my work done. So I have to ask, what is the role that coffee is playing here?
I'm smiling because it's the same issue. I see that everywhere. It's like when I talk to people about, their health and their wellness and losing weight, the first thing they'll say is, if you're going to talk to me about my coffee, I don't want to hear it,
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like it's like sacred. So, having said that, I still need to say what I'm going to say, and I hope you all still continue listening to me. You need to know that caffeine can increase your cortisol secretion in people who are undergoing stress. So, which the high cortisol levels leads to what I just went through, describing how that affects your weight and other things. So, in a perfect world, I think that it's important to, drastically cut down your caffeine if you can. Now, one way of doing that that could work for some people is to switch your caffeine. So people who are like heavy coffee drinkers, if there's a way to switch to something, say, for instance, green tea, because green tea still has your caffeine, but it actually happens to have many other nutrients within it that actually promote weight loss and health. Mm-hmm. So, that's one way of moving over that, over that barrier.
I'm a green tea drinker, so I definitely get that. And I switched from coffee to green tea, and one of the things that I've heard over and over is that I don't like the taste of green tea, and I do think it's an acquired taste, and I think it's like any other habit that you just say, okay, this is something I'm going to change. I'm only going to tackle this right now, and this is what my new regimen is.
Yeah, listen, coffee is an acquired taste too. And over time
True.
You get used to it, and then you learn to love it. And I think that's great advice if you can, just sort of figure out how to maybe just go with it for a week or two, and take it, and you'll get used to it and you'll enjoy it. I have a similar, with another food, peanut butter versus almond butter. We used to eat a lot of peanut butter, and then we switched to almond butter in our family, which I think is far more healthy for a lot of reasons. But the same sensation was, I only like peanut butter, and almond butter tasted strange. But over time, I can't even remember what peanut butter tastes like anymore.
Me too. We're an almond butter family as well.
So, I want to talk a little bit more about how to reduce stress and cortisol levels. There's other ways besides, the big topic is caffeine, but there's other ways that you can also reduce your stress. And one is very common. You probably, shake your head at this, but, try and layer in at least some level of exercise into your routine. So even if you're just walking for 30 minutes a day, it really can work wonders on your stress levels and your cortisol levels. And another exercise, and this is something that I use for myself and my family, especially when things are getting heated up and stressed, it's a breathing technique. And you'd be amazed, this takes less than a minute. It's free, and it can really drastically improve your stress levels and reduce your cortisol. So basically what you do is, as you're sitting there or standing there, you simply breathe in through your nose, and you count to 4. So I'll do it for a second. You hold it for 2 seconds, and you make sure to breathe into your belly so that your belly is expanding as you breathe in. And then you let the air out through your mouth until it's comfortable. You pause for about a second, and then you repeat this about 8 times. Now, if you just do it literally, like I said, it takes less than a minute. This will reset your stress response and cortisol levels. It's a great tool for wherever you are in the world.
It's such a great reminder because you read so much about breathing, and I need a reminder. How strange, something that is just a completely automatic thing. I need a reminder to actually breathe and about this technique, because one thing that I heard from a therapist was the best part about this particular stress technique is you can do it anywhere. You don't have to ask anybody about it. You don't have to make room for it or put in your schedule. You can do it right at the second that you remember, just like you were just teaching us how to do it. I love that. So I wanted to actually just talk about, your company, Real Dose. People in Peer Trainer have heard about it for a while. I've been a sponsor of Peer Trainer. And so we get a lot of questions about the product line and the company. And, of course, one of the biggest questions, because they're seeing your stuff and they go, oh, gosh, is this too good to be true? Do these products really work? Is this a real company? Who are these people? And that's obviously why I wanted to get you on the phone, because when you start to explain these things and it becomes more clear, people can finally say, okay, I'm getting a more clear understanding of how this is going to help me.
Well, Jackie, I hope that I've painted a picture of what we're after here. Our basic view is that many people out there are suffering from massive hormonal imbalance and need every tool that they can to get back on track. The other thing to realize is that, as you know, there's a wide variety of quality supplements out there. And the name of our company, Real Dose, is a direct response to the reality that not all of these supplements are created equally. Now, in terms of the question, does our product work, the answer is yes. And you need to see how researchers have discovered a special combination of ingredients that overcome all of the fat-burning barriers that we've been talking about without harmful drugs or deprivation. Now, this is the first solution that I've seen that breaks through these barriers by increasing your fat burning, curbing your appetite. It's helping to get your carbs to be used as muscle fuel or burned as energy rather than being stored as fat. And it reduces stress while boosting your mood and your energy. And importantly, and we've mentioned this before, the formula works without caffeine or other harsh stimulants. These are some of the most common ingredients in almost every weight loss supplement, caffeine, stimulants. The Real Dose product has none of these. It's really a Swiss Army knife to help support your weight loss efforts. And support is the key word because, and this is important, you've got to be eating a nutrient-dense diet, plenty of greens and veggies, and all the things that you're relentlessly promoting at Pure Trainer.
Yeah, I know. We're often accused of being a broken record. Vegetables, greens. Like, stop. I heard it from my mother. I know. But the simple fact is that you can't say it enough. People just don't get enough of the nutrient density. And, of course, there are many other factors. But, I have to say that this is all really interesting. And I want to know how you came up with the idea for the formula because is this just something that someone can go into a store, a common thing that any high-quality supplement has? Because that's kind of what you start to think in your head. It's very interesting. I get what you're saying. It all makes sense. Let me just put it on my to-do list next time I'm at the store.
Well, the answer is no. What we've created is a totally unique blend of ingredients that is actually only available through online. It's not being sold in stores. And a longer answer to what sets us apart is we spared literally no time or expense in developing this formula. We studied every ingredient known to man that had claims about whether they about weight loss, and we've scrutinized the science between each one of these ingredients. And when we finally identified the ingredients that we knew were real and that could actually help people, what we then did was we made sure to source them from the same places where the original scientists did their work. And then we made sure that the ingredients were processed and extracted by the identical methods. And finally, we made sure to include them at the same dose that the scientists did. So that's the origin of the name Real Dose. Now, most other companies never take these steps anywhere near it because, quite frankly, it's just extremely time-consuming and much more expensive. But we felt it was more important to create a product that works, even though it might be more expensive, rather than a cheaper product that's ineffective and a waste of money.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the supplements that are designed to support weight loss are tough on the body, specifically the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and it's our job at Pure Trainer to always steer people completely clear of anything that's not natural and obviously has side effects like that. So I'd love you to explain a little bit more about how Real Dose will affect, not every single case, but how it affects the body. And is it harsh? Is it, I think you understand what I mean.
Right. Sure. Well, what you're saying was key for us, too, because, there's a lot of products out there that are less than let's put it this way, they certainly don't meet our standards. And what we did in formulating our product was made sure that every ingredient was basically botanic and natural and kosher and really based on foods. So everything that's in this product has literally been consumed for centuries as a food derivative from different places around the world where these ingredients come. And so it's safe from that perspective. And as I've talked about, there's a lot of supplements on the market that are, some form of stimulant or caffeine. And these products may work in the short term, but they don't work in the long term for sure, especially after you stop taking them. You get that rebound effect. It's one of the reasons why people gain weight back after they've lost weight off of one of these, supplements or these rebound diets, yo-yo dieting, it's called. They can also be addictive and cause many other health issues. We made it a point to avoid these ingredients altogether, and we're proud of it. It's decaffeinated and it's absolutely stimulant-free.
And it's so interesting. A big question, it just brings me to think about what people are always asking at Peer Trainer. And one of the biggest questions is, how can I deal with the nighttime? They say, I'm great all day. I made fantastic choices. And then literally, I don't even know why, but the wheels come off at 5 after work, on the way home from work, wherever it is. And I'd like to know if the formula helps with that. I mean, people call it emotional eating, but it's really that, that night boredom, snacking, stress, eating when the wheels come off and you just feel as though a monster has taken over your body and you could eat everything in sight.
Well, the formula does help with that from two angles. One is the action on the ghrelin hormone that we mentioned before, which is a reduction of that hormone, so you have a feeling of being less hungry. Also, the action on the cortisol response, which is another ingredient which I'll get to later, which actually can help increase your mood and your energy and reduce your stress level. So from those two perspectives, the formula can actually help you. But also, just getting into the whole topic of emotional eating, I think you always need to go beyond your supplement and start taking in practice some of the, the other ways that you can reduce the stress in your life, which I think can also help to reduce these late-night cravings. And that's like what we were just talking about before, the breathing exercises, getting exercise, changing your caffeine or reducing it if possible. And, there's plenty of other ways of reducing stress. There's meditation, there's yoga, there's music therapy. There's anything that you like, pick something, but that's going to help you.
Yeah, and sometimes even checking in with yourself, that whole book, the whole premise behind emotional intelligence, where sometimes you're spending so much time distracting yourself from your emotions or your anger or your frustration that you've developed this habit of, okay, I'm not going to deal with this right now, but I am going to deal with the refrigerator. And you're absolutely right. You really have to take a layered approach to this. And what we're always doing is trying to help people with the different layers that can really help them solve this in the long term within their own life, because if one size definitely doesn't fit all, and I just like that you are introducing another element along with all the different things that you might be trying that could help.
Right. It's a combined approach.
Yeah. So I'm getting obviously more of the basic idea of how it works, but I'd love you to go over the ingredient list for us, what's actually in the Real Dose formula. Sure.
So the first ingredient is an extract of two plants that have been used for centuries in Ayurvedic medicine, which is medicine practiced in India. One's called Piper betel leaf, and the other is Dolichos biflorus seed, and those are tongue twisters for sure. But this extract is clinically shown to boost adiponectin, which is the fat-burning hormone that we spoke about before, and lower your ghrelin levels also. And the net result of that is you are burning more fat while feeling less hungry.
That's super interesting. My mother-in-law is from India, and I've heard that they chew betel leaves after their meals.
Yes, they do, but I don't think they chew it for weight loss. It's actually used as they put tobacco in it.
Oh.
Sort of like used to wrap the tobacco.
Maybe it's a dual effect.
Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, I mean, it is common in India, and it's been used for centuries. So that's the key ingredient. The second one is a derivative of a special decaffeinated green coffee bean, which some of you may have been hearing a lot about lately because Dr. Oz has been talking about this. But it contains a powerful weight loss substance called chlorogenic acid. So in coffee there's caffeine, but there are also other ingredients and nutrients. And this chlorogenic acids actually help to regulate your blood sugar by inhibiting the sugar absorption in the small intestine and backup sugar production by the liver. And this is forcing your body to burn fat as energy instead of sugar. So, what's interesting here is, like I said, this is decaffeinated. So you're getting the benefits of the coffee bean, but you're not getting the caffeine from it. I just wanted to point that out. Now,
interesting.
What's important about both of these ingredients that I've just listed is that they've both been proven safe and effective in human double-blind placebo-controlled studies. And these are all readily available on our website. These studies have shown that people who are taking these extracts lost more than twice the amount of weight as the placebo groups while following the same diet. So that's very powerful right there. Now, the third ingredient is an herb from Siberia, which is called Rhodiola rosea, and it's known as an adaptogen. And basically, it's been used for centuries in Russia and Scandinavia as a natural remedy for stress, anxiety, and fatigue. It's a safe, natural remedy for helping you with your stress, and less stress, as we've now discussed, means that your cortisol levels can be lower, your mood is brighter, and your body can more easily burn off that dangerous belly fat that we spoke about.
Rhodiola is something I'm hearing about from other experts, so it's interesting. If you wouldn't mind just commenting just a brief definition of what an adaptogen is, because I think more people are hearing that word as well.
An adaptogen is basically an herbal derivative that helps with your stress and energy in your body. And there's others like rhodiola, but we found rhodiola to be the particular rhodiola that we're sourcing is from Siberia, which was where all of the original research on the ingredient was done. So we're getting it from the original source and extracted in exactly the same way. So you have to be careful. Like I've said before, you have to be careful where you're getting your ingredients from, because there are versions of rhodiola from other parts of the world that are not as effective.
Interesting.
So the key here is that we've combined these ingredients. Main issues that are these hormonal challenges to weight loss. And, again, I just want to emphasize, a supplement is designed to supplement. This is not a license to eat all the junk that you want. You can't just go and eat whatever you want and expect to have success. The people that we see that are doing well are those who are making these great changes but who have been resistant to losing weight in the past.
And people who might be weight loss resistant, essentially.
Yes, Jackie. This is a great term for it. People who are exercising, eating right, and are still struggling. So all in all, like I've said above, this is the first solution that I've seen that breaks through all four of these weight loss barriers that we've been talking about.
Okay, I have to ask, does this work for everyone? From what you've seen? I mean, of course, nothing works for everyone, but how do I know who this is going to work for?
Well, more tough questions, and bring them on. I love it. It's fine. And the short answer is no. It does not work for everyone. Everyone's bodies are different. We do have some, but not many people return the formula. We actually offer a full year to return the product, so you can give it a fair chance. The reality is that some people might not have the barriers that this formula is overcoming, so it would not be a big help for them. We do have some people who take it just for the energy benefits, the stress-reducing benefits, that are not losing weight as well. And I want to repeat that you absolutely have to follow a good diet for this to work. It's not a miracle pill. It simply accelerates the results of a good plan like yours, Jackie, or gets rid of the issues that are causing people not to lose weight at all on an effective diet. But no, you can't pig out and lose weight using our formula.
How about people who are taking other multivitamins, maybe other supplements? We know that protein shakes are also popular in the morning. Does the Real Dose product work in conjunction with that? Are there any, mixes that maybe people should know about?
Well, in general, it works very well with all of these other, especially protein shakes and things like that. But what I will say as an MD and doctor is whenever you're going to be starting on any new plan, a supplement plan, a diet plan, an exercise plan, please check in with your doctor and just check in with him, discuss it, him or her, and it's super important because we have to work in tandem. There's natural cures, there's natural remedies, but there's also a mainstream medical establishment that knows a lot about how our bodies work and really can help us. So I always recommend to make sure you check in with your healthcare provider when you're starting any of these new routines.
And that's a great point. I think a lot of people also tend to hear that, and then they don't necessarily take action to build a good relationship with their physician, because it does take a little work. But I'm glad that you're saying that, and, you know, of course I hear this a lot, but it's true, you know, it really is this holistic approach, and you're going to layer in all the different things that help you get that result. I do want to ask, you know, what about side effects? Is there anything crazy that has happened? Is there anyone who should not be taking this, or anything really like it?
Well, there's essentially almost no side effects. I mean, like I said, these ingredients are basically food derivatives that have been consumed for centuries, sometimes actually thousands of years in some cases. And but, you know, we do have some, you know, there are some things that you need to be careful at. Like if you're pregnant or nursing, you should be checking in with your doctor for sure. If you have any medical condition or you're taking medications, you should be checking in with your doctor. But for the most part, you know, we've seen from our customers very little, almost no complaints of side effects.
Well, this has been incredibly interesting for me, and I'm sure to everyone listening, because there's so many different things that, you know, that have been made more clear for me. You know, I do want to say, for those of you in Peer Trainer who are going to take advantage of the fish oil offer, because obviously it sounds amazing, we have a link on the side of the page. And I always say to everyone, please keep an open mind. It's great to hear things here that I've heard elsewhere, but this formula itself obviously seems unique, which is why I wanted to introduce you. And again, I'm going to wrap it back to this thing that people hear a lot about hormonal imbalance and how it has an effect on your weight loss. And there are many different things you need, almost what I call in your weight loss tool chest, to really help with this. And so I'm looking forward to a lot of the, you know, hearing about if you have any new products coming out as you bring them out, because again, it's that layered approach I'm always talking about.
Well, you know, I want to say thank you so much, Jackie, and I really appreciate the time that you've given to me to share this information. I'm obviously excited by the results that the formula is getting for our customers, and I'm sure it can help your clients and readers achieve even greater success than they already are with your offers and with your programs. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to share one of my favorite stories from one of our customers. You know, I often go back and read this whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed by all the work we're doing here and stressed out myself. It's a great story because it helps this person, actually this family, with more than just weight loss, and it affected the entire family. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read it.
Oh, please.
Okay, so this is from Ed C., who lives in Wisconsin, and he wrote in as follows. He said, "Since taking Real Dose Weight Loss Formula number 1, my weight has dropped, and my blood glucose level has also dropped significantly. Obviously, the first person to really notice a change in my weight was my wife, and so it was about 5 weeks ago she also began taking Real Dose Weight Loss Formula number 1. She has also lost weight and is loving it. She is not a very active person like I am, and so I see this as exceptional results for her. She tells everyone she sees about Real Dose Weight Loss Formula number 1 and what it has done for her. 2 of our 4 children are now in the early stages of trying the product since they can see the results of what it's done for us. The one thing I would say that's the most important for me is that I was beginning to worry about my blood sugar level since it was staying well over 200, but now I am down in a good range. I plan to stay on Real Dose Weight Loss Formula number 1 and take it 3 times a day until I reach my goal of 175 pounds, which at that time I will probably reduce taking it to once or twice a day. Real Dose Weight Loss Formula number 1 has been a godsend for my wife and I, and we plan for it to be a regular part of our diet for a long, long time." So I'll leave it at that, Jackie. I really hope that if you're struggling with your weight and are serious about following an effective plan like Peer Trainers, that you give this formula a try.
You know, thanks, Dr. Sisskind. I really appreciate it. And I know that you, in all your years of doing this, and for us as Peer Trainer, are really on the same mission of making sure that people are aware of all the different tools. Again, remember my weight loss tool chest that can help them, and giving people the knowledge. But most importantly about that knowledge, making it really clear. Again, I have to say that thing, confusion leads to inaction. And the more clear that you are, the more you have motivation, even the energy to make a step towards this. So, again, thank you so much for also, again, taking the time and explaining the different things to the entire community. And, again, I just really, really appreciated the learnings and the education that you provided here.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie. It's been a real pleasure. It was great meeting you in Boulder, and I'm looking forward to our next meeting there.
Great. All right. See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.